La semaine dernière, donc j'avais ramené tout un paquet, mais elles sont parties. Je suis vraiment désolée.
Okay. So I welcome all the panelists on the stage. I welcome Director General International Solar Alliance, His Excellency Mr. Upendra Tripathi, to please present the opening remarks.
Friends, as always, post-lunch, that has its own impact and effect. And combined with the post-lunch, it is the last day. So for the first time, we are seeing a little vacant space, but then that is not important. Important is the quality and complexity of the issue. $1,000 billion, in fact, when the framework agreement for the International Solar Alliance was being negotiated as a treaty between various countries, there are two different schools. One said that, we must have a benchmark as to what ISA is going to do. We put, so obviously countries said that not less than $5,000 billion we need to have, adaptation projects, mitigation projects, and keep that global mean temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And there were other schools, we thought that it is much less than that. So like all treaties, there was a final compromise. So if you look at the Paris Declaration or even the framework agreement of ISA, it says more than $1,000 billion were to be mobilized by 2030. Now, two things are not clear. How much more? And is it in addition to what usually comes to the global solar space? But there are important issues. $150 billion we get as investment in the global market. And if you just don't do anything, it'll cross $1,000 billion. Of course, there is a clause more than, and that we have to find out how much more it'll come. But if you look at the way the capital, the investment is getting distributed, that is very unequal. In fact, small developing countries, LDCs, island countries, those who actually suffer maximum because of climate change, they are the worst in terms of getting investment from this expansion into solar space. If you look at the complexity of how investment can come, today, in fact, the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries must be present here. They happen to be the convener of a task force of ours called Global Leadership Task Force. ISA has prepared it. SoftBank is heading it. SoftBank is one of our corporate partners. Now, they went to UNI, the National University Engineering College here, quite famous in the region and even globally. Now, what type of solar facilities they have for testing, what type of solar facilities they have to ensure good quality, that also influences financing and how much money comes in. To give you one example, countries like China and India are huge countries. So if you take 4 or 5 provinces of India, say from south you take Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, in the north you take Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and you do a regression analysis of the prices they arrive at. And you have to have several variables to determine as to why price differs from one province to the other. It is the quality of sunlight, it is the quality of capital, quality of loan you take, cost of land, and risk of getting your money on time. There are so many variables that actually determine the cost of capital and the type of investment you get in. Having said this, I'm sure you have this huge panel, and the panel has experts who not only understand capital, they also understand how actually capital can be made affordable, how actually private capital can be moved into the solar space. We from ISA have partnership agreements with most of the banks. At one point, I remember not the present president, but the earlier president of the World Bank saying that if we can create a risk mitigation capital or risk mitigation fund of $3,000 billion. This will get, or at least $300 billion, 10 times that money will come from the private sector because the cost of capital will be less. Look, very simple. $300 billion of a risk mitigation mechanism, and then you get private sector investment into this sector. Now, towards this $1,000 billion, what have we done so far? We requested Government of India to put in $2 billion, which Exim Bank made a presentation in the morning. France has put in 1.5 billion euros through AFD. We have requested our member countries like the UK, Japan, Australia, the Netherlands to follow same footprint that India and France have provided, so that more money is earmarked for solar projects in member countries. This apart, World Bank, we incubated an idea of a risk mitigation mechanism, and World Bank has just started $373 million a risk mitigation fund in West African countries, and they plan to expand it to other areas. But this mere providing $2 billion, $1.5 billion, 5 billion euros is not enough, nor the small risk mitigation funds that have come up. We need a solar revolution to address the issues of universal energy access, energy security. We need a lot more finance to come in. In fact, at some point, I thought we should have a World Solar Bank. Now, how this World Solar Bank will be different from other traditional banks? In the sense, its focus, its clientele, its philosophy will be different. Its first priority will be the communities who have no access to electricity, the 700 million people we talk about, or about the 2 billion women we talk about, those who don't have access to clean energy cooking medium. So a World Solar Bank will broadly be philosophically different as a special purpose vehicle in finance from the way that traditionally the banks are operating. But those are the issues of the future. I'm sure the panel will throw light into all these aspects as to how in next 5-10 years, do we still find a world without energy access for 700 million people? Do we find a future where each member country of HISA has the ability to attract investment and fight climate change? Or we keep on having seminars like this where even figures don't change, statements remain also the same? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tripathi, for this kind words and nice introduction. To attract 1 trillion, it's really a hard task. I would say the key word is going to be quality and regulatory framework. To detail a bit more, I would say we need a good project proposal, and then a nice, good quality implementation of that. And for this, we need finance, of course. And to get finance, we need some change in some regulatory frameworks. So we are going to address all these topics, all these issues. We have a very large panel of people representing manufacturing industry, capacity building organizations, also people representing policy and regulations. As we are 9 and we have 1 hour, less than 1 hour and a half now, I will request all the panelists to start with no more than 5 minutes each. And then we will see, depending on the question which may arise in the audience, and if we have the opportunity to give you the floor a second time. So our first speaker, first panelist, is going to be Pranav Mehta, Chairman of the Global Solar Council. Pranav, the floor is yours.
Well, friends, in order that you can appreciate what I'm going to say, let me first say what is Global Solar Council. Global Solar Council is a private sector response to global warming and climate change. It was formed at Paris during the 2015 when ISA, Paris Climate Talk, when ISA was formed, and similar good initiatives started at that time. So it consists of 35 country associations and corporates. Therefore, we have reached through these associations to these various countries. And essentially, my own experience is from the industry of having worked for over 40, 45 years. And all these colleagues on our board also have similar experience. So we all talk many times that in which country shall we go? Where shall we go and invest? At that time, one essential principle is investment follows policy. The country where there are good policies, these days people say ease of doing business, that is where we go. So I think one of the important steps for us in ISA, all the partners like us, is to ensure that the various governments form appropriate policies and we help them in a very friendly manner from our experience. So we have to encourage governments to go in for good policies conducive to solar growth. And one more thing that we always say, there is a big multiplier effect. Once $1 is invested by the government, to my mind, $10 will follow. So 10 times minimum is the multiplier effect. In this direction of ensuring good solar growth and policies, I think this demand aggregation work that ISA is doing will be a big game changer. For instance, it has already been done for solar pumps, and if it goes to the solar agricultural storage, next will be, let us say, storage as we discussed this morning, as also for microgrids, because microgrids also have a large potential for, you may see in one of the stalls, people are showing that 1 billion people do not have access to energy, electricity. And in Global Solar Council also, we had taken up the work that my heart goes out to the people who do not have electricity. We have so much of, we are all very blessed that we are in air-conditioned halls and we are, with all this electricity, etc. So we must work for them. That is the main thing that we should have in mind. Then, to take this thing further, technology and innovations will play an equally important role, and in various other forums we have said that technology must come to the rescue of the problem, and technology has all the potential to do that, which you can see through history. I am not going into detail, but what is of relevance to us is battery technologies. That was discussed in the earlier session also. Similarly, green hydrogen using solar energy, that is the new applications of solar. All this will help us in attracting investment. It excites people that there are new projects possible, then investment will come. New ideas, then investment will come. So taking one more step that is important to my mind is taking technology and innovations to the people, that unless all things that we do reaches the people, it is not of relevance. And then only we have done something. And that is a main exercise which we can do jointly, as I mentioned in our ISA partnership, IRENA partnership, etc. This further leads us to the importance of partnerships. Nobody alone can achieve everything. That's why ISA, we have signed an agreement of cooperation and we are working very closely. Similarly, we are working very closely with IRENA. And even within the country, for instance, my National Solar Federation and Exim Bank, if we work together, that partnership will go a long way. And we are thinking to encourage exports, which every country can do. Renewable Energy Export Promotion Council. That means whoever has the renewable energy export experience can export. Just the EPC service, let us say, if not panels. Panels, large China, Vietnam, etc. are doing. But for instance, in India, we can easily do this EPC business. So that Renewable Energy Export Promotion Council we are trying to form in India, such kind of initiatives will also greatly help. Similarly, these partnerships that we mentioned, Coal India people are here. So to my mind, it will be a very big step by a coal company to go in for renewable energy. The same way as all our petroleum and gas people are coming. We say that even in Global Solar Council, we have all transited from oil and gas industry, most of us. So similarly, if Coal India can also be brought into, while not denying, as was shown in the slides earlier this morning, coal has its own role, natural gas has its own role, hydro has its own role. So we should try and work together and benefit from each other. Similarly, some initiative like this India-Africa Youth Forum that we have, where we are trying to develop the skill development, the local capabilities. Once we do that, in other words, when we do steps which are benefiting the people, when we do steps, for instance, this larger sustainable development goals and climate change. Sustainable development goals, as is shown in the ISA pavilion, that not only goal 7, but also the other goals are served. For instance, through these solar agricultural pumps, we can serve the goal of water, of providing good drinking water. Because for irrigation, you require only just 2 hours. Balanced water that you say, you store it in a large tank or a reservoir and distribute it, it is a business case. So that will bring investment. So these are the kind of things we have to say.
You need
Now I'm concluding the last sentence, that as long as we will be serving this greater cause of reaching to the people, people benefiting, and sustainable development goals which are common to the mankind as declared by United Nations, investment will certainly follow. And there should be no problem whatsoever in generating the thing that we have in mind is $1 trillion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for explaining your vision for the industry. Mainly, if I can sum it up, mainly as looking at aggregation as a game changer, and also innovation to match people. And exportation. Now we are going to look at bank and financing institution point of view, and I'm going to give the floor to move forward to Mr. Arndt Beck, Head of Office for Latin America at the European Investment Bank. So Mr. Beck, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Philip, and thanks also for ISA for inviting the European Investment Bank. I'll try to be brief, but I know that a lot of people here may not be familiar with the European Investment Bank, so let me just say a few words about ourselves. The EIB, we are the world's largest lender and the world's largest supranational borrower. And when it comes to climate, also, if you put together loans and guarantees, we are more or less the largest climate finance. So climate is actually the main target now for the European Investment Bank. We are located in Luxembourg. We've got a AAA, and our owners are the 28 member states of the European Union. Well, the way we function is quite similar to other development banks, World Bank, AfD, or KfW, BID, which is simply our objective is to close gaps, to see where are market failures, to address those market failures, and what is the topic of that discussion here is to mobilize private money. That is basically the task we are having here. You may have heard that the incoming European Commission, they are quite ambitious when it comes to climate. They want to basically convert the European Union into a net zero emissions area by 2050, which is quite ambitious. But the new president of the European Union is already in contact with the EIB, and they will ask us to also contribute to that, but tremendously, I've got to say. I mean, so far we did more or less 30% of our lending was climate lending, and that should be increased to 50% by 2025, which is ambitious. But I guess I'm afraid we've got no alternative, so we've got to do that. Now, when it comes to Latin America, we are here active for 25 years. What we are normally doing here is kind of investments, normally also joined with the colleagues from World Bank, BID, AfD, KfW, and all other multinational banks, that we together, we finance solid waste treatment, wastewater treatment plants. What we are doing is sustainable transport, metro lines, and renewable energy. Renewable energy will become more important for the EIB in the future. The way we are focusing on renewable energy now here in Latin America is currently twofold. We are unfortunately currently not able to do project finance or PPP operations because all these capacities are now bound in Africa. So what we do here is we do corporate lending. 2 years ago, we signed a loan of $150 million with Enel Green Power for different plants in Peru. Most of them are wind power plants. We signed a loan with EDP Renováveis from Brazil or from Portugal, and for investments in Brazil and Mexico. We are now in discussions with other companies on financing. You may know that last week or 2 weeks ago there was an auction of renewable energy, solar and wind in Colombia, so we are in talks on that. And the second way we address that sector is via bank intermediation. So we've got a loan with NAFIN in Mexico with $100 million, and this bank simply uses the EIB funds to give cheap loans to promoters of solar and wind energy. We're doing the same with BDMG in Brazil and so on. Our experts in Luxembourg, they think that more or less in the last 3 years, from 2016 to 18, we helped to mobilize some $2.7 billion for renewable energy projects in Latin America. The way forward, as I said, we are the EU bank, so basically we are there to do whatever the Commission tells us. Renewable energy is a prime focus of the incoming Commission, so we expect to be more and more active in that sector, not only here but also in other areas of the world. if I still have 1 or 2 minutes, and then the way how we mobilize money, what is actually the topic of that here, of that session. I think we, at least the Europeans, we do have quite good experience from Europe. We implemented a lot of financial instruments in recent years, where what actually meant a huge important change to the EIB. Because what we did in the past is, until, I don't know, 10 years ago, the EIB normally went in very senior tranches, so we did not want to have a lot of risk, but we gave large amounts in senior. And with the Juncker plan, with financial crisis in Europe, 2008-9, we turned around that model, and now we are going into equity. We are investing in fund of funds. We are going into mezzanine, subordinated debt, and all that stuff with lower amounts in order to allow private investors, pension funds, and so on, to come on in senior tranches. That's it for the time being. Any questions? I think we can take them later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beck. We will go on the view from a banking institution, and I will now give the floor to Mr. Sivakumar from the Exim Bank.
Buenos tardes. My Spanish is only limited to that. While I'll be making a presentation in English, for the benefit of the audience who are mostly Spanish speaking, I've got the presentation translated in Spanish. I've structured the presentation in 3 parts. If you see, ISA is in the center of the solar universe, and I'll be covering about how the various ISA economies can cooperate among themselves, various possible structures in mobilizing $1 trillion, and most of the solution structures, what I will share is my personal opinion, not necessarily of my institution, and how Export-Import Bank of India can further support the solar sector. Now, if you see in the last 70 years, there has been a significant improvement in the cost, size, and efficiency of the solar panels from early 1950s, then 2000 and latest. Investments in solar has consistently been highest since last 5 years. Global solar investments have increased significantly from about $12 billion to $120 billion in 2015. These falling costs and innovating financing mechanisms are putting small-scale distributed solar within the reach of more people in both developed and emerging economies. ISA members may take use of this opportunity. Having said that, there are some generic challenges in solar sector which we should be mindful. Given the significant falling prices in the solar cost, there are some challenges in terms of continuing PPA commitments and policy continuity. As you would see, this I would say more from the India perspective, where the governments have signed PPAs at a higher price and solar prices coming. There are some challenges in some economies in maintaining the PPA commitments in terms of policy continuity, and there are some challenges in grid connectivity as well. So there is a need to increase the plant load factor, which is actually increasing, but a lot of things can be further improved so that the land required, large tracts of land required, can get reduced. And there are some challenges in land acquisition as financiers. One of the biggest challenge for the lenders would be having a charge on the land. Sometimes we finance the projects and there is some problem in creating the security, so that could be some of the challenges. There is an increased spend required in R&D so that the PLF is increasing, and some of the, as Excellency was mentioning in terms of circular economy, how do we recycle the solar panels, etc. Growth currently is largely driven by fiscal incentives, where I think going forward there should be reduced dependence on such incentives to be projects viable on a standalone basis. The world's total installed PV capacity reached about 480 gigawatts, and the new PV additions in last year was about 94 gigawatts. Currently, Asia is a continent with the largest share of cumulative installations at around 275 gigawatts. Most of the capacity is located in China with 175 gigawatts, Japan 55 gigawatts, India 27 gigawatts, South Korea, Thailand, and Taiwan. Europe is the second largest region in terms of cumulative volume. North America, meanwhile, has reached cumulative PV capacity of 55 gigawatts. By the end of 2018, Oceania and Africa had cumulatively installed 10 gigawatts and 5.1 gigawatts of solar respectively. We drew a possible cooperation matrix with ISA economists. In fact, we put the cooperation possibilities in 4 buckets. One is in terms of technology, which has potential source for technology. Manufacturing, again, we put some certain countries according to what we perceive. Low-end manufacturing, where there's a cost arbitrage, and where exactly the market is in terms of energy deficit. This is a broad suggestions where we thought there could be an increased cooperation between the ISA member economies. Extending what His Excellency was mentioning, in fact, actually, we also had an idea of where it could be a win-win situation where all the member economies can set up a green bank. It could serve a multiple purpose. One, it could finance the solar projects in the member economies on a competitive terms, which is compared to the domestically available resources. Leverage the capital received as a contribution from the member economies and increase the resource base through international bond market, etc. And again, extending some of the other panel speakers to do non-financial intervention by way of credit enhancement. It need not be only financing, it could do credit enhancement so that there is a multiplier effect. And it can issue green bonds, and we have seen that utilization of green bonds currently not necessarily generated in solar power, but it goes in the front-end sustainable projects. Maybe there could be increased focus on utilization of such proceeds for generation of solar power itself. Further, there could be cooperation in terms of reduction in tariff, almost make it zero for acknowledgement of, because still there is, I think there is some tariff restrictions between the economies. There could be increased tax cuts, so there is increased support for the solar sector. We thought of some possible structures to raise and as well as finance the 1 trillion requirement for solar sector. In the first model, where what we thought is that the Multilateral Development Bank can co-finance with ECAs of ISA members who are part of OECD, who has the capacity to finance on terms, in terms of both tenor as well as pricing compared to MDPs. So this is basically the first model where MDBs co-finance with ECAs of select countries. The second model, what we thought is an ECA of an ISA member finances the overseas government, and the overseas government, basically it's a sovereign lending, and the sovereign finances the borrower, which is an entity within that country for the project. In terms of Model 3, where the ECA of ISA member country finances directly the energy service company or the utility, where the sovereign gives a guarantee, and whereas there's a in terms of a commitment of exports from this particular country. The fourth one is something similar to the Model 1, but in this case, what happens, the MDB and ECA does what is called a parallel financing, not a joint financing, where both institution does a part of the project, need not necessarily jointly the same project. Some components are done by MDB, some components are done by ECAs. The fifth module, what we thought is that maybe without the involvement of MDBs, with the increased role of ECAs in the ISA member countries, ISA member of 2 countries finances a project in the third country or in one of the countries, and where there is an involvement of the solar sector. The other one is more in terms of a subset of this model, which is in terms of rooftop, where the ECA of an ISA member country finances through the commercial bank, and where the borrower takes a lot of incentives for such kind of solar financings, rooftop solar financing. We wanted to map the various ECAs, DFIs in Exim banks in these member countries. So basically, where the audience can get an idea of the presence of all ECAs, DFIs, and Exim banks in member countries, which could play a very active role in terms of financing. In terms of the role and possible structures, the ECAs and DFIs of the ISA member countries can continue financing this solar sector, can also play a developmental role in terms of assisting implementation of various ISA programs. Excellency was mentioning various ISA programs. They can support assisting in implementation of this. Facilitation DPR, which is I think very, very important. In fact, my colleague was talking about the financing, Exim Bank financing various projects. The starting point is DPR. We can support in terms of facilitating DPR. Appropriate structuring of projects, which is the financing part. Facilitating interaction amongst the various stakeholders, and which is more important is the exchange of best practices. For the benefit of some of the members who wouldn't be aware of Exim Bank, we are set up by Government of India by an Act of Parliament to finance, facilitate, promote India's international trade. We are wholly owned by Government of India. We commenced operations in March 1982. To give you an idea of the various financing programs, I won't take much time. We can broadly categorize programs into 3 buckets. One is the export credits, then finance for export capability creation, value-added services. Exim Bank can finance and support solar sector in all 3 buckets. In export credits, if an Indian company is executing a solar project outside India, we can finance under what is called project exports. Under financing export capability, if an Indian company is putting up a solar project within India, we can finance those projects as well. And the third one is where we do a lot of the information dissemination in terms of even supporting ISA programs. As far as specific Exim Bank support in terms of solar projects, maybe I would leave these slides for my colleague to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sivakumar. We will come back to the financial sector afterwards, but I think it's good to cover all the various issues. And as I told at the beginning, quality, training, capacity building is an important topic also to end up with quality project to be able to be financed. So I give the floor to Ms. Miracle, International Project Manager at INES, who I give the floor now.
I'm not sure. Thank you, Philippe. I'm going to change a bit to Spanish now so that we can give a bit of variety to the panel, just giving some adaptation to the Peruvian population and Latin American population. Desde los años 2000, América Latina ha vivido una fuerte aceleración y desarrollo de las energías renovables. Como reflexión un poco para complementar lo que se está enfatizando en el panel, se está dando mucha relevancia al hecho de obtener suficientes recursos financieros que permitan el desarrollo más grande de proyectos en energía solar en América Latina también. Pero yo lo que me gustaría incidir es el cómo lograr una utilización eficiente de los recursos financieros una vez los tenemos para lograr la duplicación de los mismos proyectos y para lograr también un ahorro sólido en los mismos, ¿no? Destacaría sobre todo 2 objetivos principales y retos al mismo tiempo que tenemos en energía solar. Sería la planificación de proyectos y la agregación de la demanda. Por lo cual necesitamos una buena asistencia técnica y un buen soporte de desarrollo de proyectos, sobre todo en 2 líneas básicas, desde las cuales incidimos en INES, el Centro Nacional de Energía Solar en Francia. La primera línea sería la formación y el intercambio de mejoras prácticas, y el segundo sería la certificación. tanto la formación como la certificación, por ejemplo, para instaladores, son objetivos y líneas de trabajo básicas para lograr que las instalaciones y el desarrollo de proyectos sean de buena calidad y que el financiamiento recibido por parte de diferentes organismos, tanto públicos como privados, logren su incidencia óptima en términos de calidad y en su máxima eficiencia económica. Eso es un poco lo que desde INES estamos logrando en nuestros proyectos de cooperación ya presentes en América Latina. Por ejemplo, tenemos uno principal en Chile, donde estamos desarrollando toda una plataforma de tests de módulos monofaciales y bifaciales. Otros proyectos en los que estamos iniciando nuestras negociaciones sería con Costa Rica, con el desarrollo de un sistema de certificación de instaladores en energía solar. Tenemos la demanda también de Argentina para apoyarlos en el desarrollo de un Centro Nacional de Energías Renovables y Eficiencia Energética. Y agradeciendo el actual evento de esta semana en Perú, hemos recibido varias demandas también de cooperación. Una, la cual queríamos enfatizar, sería la invitación desde Agromin para hacer parte de su evento en el año 2020, donde queremos enfatizar la posibilidad y el rol clave de la energía solar en retroalimentar una relación sustentable con el sector de la minería, es decir, cómo la energía solar puede aportar una sostenibilidad en el sector minero y cómo desde un punto de vista no solo, por ejemplo, de prácticas de bombeo solar, sino también de cómo la minería con sus recursos de litio pueden ayudar al desarrollo de baterías de almacenaje de los recursos y de la energía misma solar. Entonces, incidir de nuevo en cómo la movilización de $1 trillón de dólares es esencial desde un punto de vista de desarrollo de los proyectos, pero no olvidemos que la cantidad no debe nunca dejar de lado la calidad de los proyectos mismos para asegurar la buena implementación de los recursos económicos, y en eso es donde el rol clave de la formación y el intercambio de buenas prácticas y de la certificación tienen el papel clave y central a jugar. Gracias.
Thank you, Ms. Miracle. Now we go on with the financing sector, and I will now give the floor to Ms. Magdalena Bunikowska from KPMG as a financial expert in Lima.
Good evening, everybody. Now I have a dilemma. I don't know if I should speak Spanish or English, so let's try it in English, and if it's necessary, we will switch to Spanish. So I'm a partner for infrastructure projects and deal advisor in KPMG Peru office, and would like to give you a perspective from the advisor or private sector view on solar energy and solar energy projects. I'm not a specialist in I'm not a technology specialist, I'm not from multilateral banking, I'm just a little advisor, and I think it's interesting to hear also what the private sector thinks, what the advisor think when talking about solar projects. The first question is why we have so little solar projects that are really developed in Latin America if we have so many technological investments, we have so much progress on the pricing costs, so why do the projects really not come through? So one could get the impression that there's no interest on the private side, that nobody wants to finance the solar projects, that it's not popular. But it's not like that. That's really not like that. I have almost every month, I receive somebody from any part of the world asking me, Magdalena, do you have an interesting solar project? And I need to say, Just make a line. There are like hundreds of you beyond. Because there's a lot of interest of private sector to have solar projects, to finance the solar projects. But the devil is like always in the detail. You need to have a good project to be financed. And what I've heard from my colleagues here, I loved it very much. Where's the problem? The investment follows policy. So we have some policy issues that makes that the good projects cannot get to the sponsor, to the investors, and to the banks that really want to finance good projects. So how could we name a good or bankable project? First of all, is the thing of the demand risk. So we need a PPA. A project that has not a good PPA contract will not be financed in current conditions. And good... Sorry, what happened? Oh, okay, so I'm too fast. Oh. It's not for me? Oh, sorry.
This is...
Sorry. Okay. So, okay. So if I'm too fast, please. So first, you need a good PPA contract that should be aligned with the term of the financing. So we need a 20, 15 years, 20 years PP contract. And when you look at, for instance, in Peru, I don't remember whether we had a good or interesting PP contracts called by the policy in the last years. We don't have it. And if you don't have a long-term contract from energy purchase contract, you will not get a good project. So it is, once again, a policy issue. It's not a financing issue. It's not a financing market issue. It's a policy issue. Second one, quality of sponsors. You need good sponsors that have an experience, that can show the experience in international markets and having done these projects in other countries. Then you need a good EPC contractor and then good manufacturers. Now we have the problem with Chinese manufacturers. We don't know what will happen. We have some issues there. And of course, banks don't like manufacturing risks. So you need to have a good EPC contract, good manufacturer, and some levels of guarantees. Then, of course, there's still a land issue that has already been mentioned by my colleagues. It's also a policy issue how to ensure that the land will be available and that will not be in the future big problems with the project. Scaling possibilities. So nobody wants to build a project just in one special room. The sponsored investors are looking really to have a scaling possibilities, to build a bigger projects, to build to be able to make a substantial extension of the projects. So there are only some of the things you need to think when you are thinking about a bankable project. So it is very important for me to bring this perspective, because it's not really true that we don't have money from the projects. The money is there. But we have policy issues and we have some market value issues that, of course, the multilateral banks are taking into account. But if we don't solve these political issues, we will not mobilize the money. So we will need to always step in with public money, with multilaterals, with some kind of export-import banking, which are very important, but they should be complementary to the private financing. They should not replace the private financing. But if we are not able to structure a good solar project with a good PPA contract, we will not be able to get this financing from private sector.
Okay, thank you. May I ask a question, considering what you just said? You were referring to the construction of big power plants. I would like to know if you, what would be your position regarding energy access project, you know, individual electrification or smaller project like mini grids. What would be your position? Because in that case, there's new business models, but not really what we could call PPA.
It's for me? Okay. So, of course, there will be always projects that you need to have a special treatment because even you make the best effort, they are not bankable. So they are this kind of project, isolated projects with very high technology risk or operational risk, which will be very difficult to be financed by the private sector. But they are the world is moving forward. So we have much more experience than we had like the decade before, even on this isolated project. So for instance, here in Peru, there's a very interesting project from the private company. Of course, it's financed by the state at this moment, but the next one, the experience we got from these projects and the rural access, you're probably familiarized with. This is a project of the access to energy from isolated rural population. I think if we are able to learn from this experience and try to find a structure to be able to bring the private money to that, or at least to structure the project to be able to give a kind of partnership with the private sector, I think it will be possible. So there is no something like this cannot never be done with participation of private sector. I think there are a lot of possibilities. We are building up the experience. First projects can be just like pilots, but then I'm really I really believe that we will be able in the future to structure good projects even for this specific, today difficult solar projects. So.
Okay, thank you for this precision. Now I'm going to hand over to Ms. Stephanie Gill from the World Bank. So,
thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm Stephanie Gill. I'm the practice manager for energy for the Latin American and Caribbean region at the World Bank, and it is my pleasure to speak as part of this panel and to share with you the World Bank's contribution to mobilizing $1 trillion investment in solar energy. The World Bank Group is one of the global leaders in supporting and financing the development of renewable energy. In the past 7 to 8 years, the World Bank Group invested financed in excess of $40 billion in renewable energy and clean energy in general. And in our last fiscal year, between our private and public arms, we financed $1 billion of investment in solar photovoltaic, both about half on-grid, half off-grid, and primarily in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. What I would like to take this opportunity of this panel for today is to highlight 3 specific initiatives that the World Bank is launched to contribute to this opportunity of scaling up investment in solar energy. The first initiative is the Solar Risk Mitigation Initiative, which was launched by the World Bank in partnership with ISA, with AFD, and with IRENA as part of the COP24. This particular initiative is focused on the governments and is there to help governments develop sustainable solar programs while attracting private sector investments. And it's very interesting because what it provides is a unique integrated approach combining development and climate finance. And what I really like about what I heard so far is that this initiative really builds on the need for technical assistance, so it's not solely investment and risk mitigation instruments, but it is all about creating the right enabling environment, so at legal, regulatory, institutional, market level, and in the context for renewable investment, and in the context of the Solar Risk Mitigation Initiative in particular, it's there to support the countries in developing, what we call evidence-based photovoltaic targets, so that these are achievable and that there is a roadmap towards achieving these, whether we are considering in industry type of farms or mini-grids, isolated home solar systems. So it is an integrated approach that is starting from technical assistance and that also focuses on the public sector investments that are necessary necessary to also unlock the private side of things, because that renewable energy will have to be absorbed by the grid. And it will also have, sometimes it will need some public infrastructure that will be also necessary in order to make the project bankable from the private sector standpoint. So this is a first initiative that builds on technical assistance and specific public side investments to enable, again, unlocking of financing, private sector financing for renewable energy. That's the first initiative, the Solar Risk Mitigation Initiative. The second one is the Scaling Solar Initiative, which you may have heard from also. And this one is completely focused on attracting private sector investment in emerging markets in solar. And what it is a one-stop shop at the World Bank Group, which essentially is designed to make projects bankable. So building on the themes that were already mentioned. So it essentially provides comprehensive transaction advisory services, technical at completing the design at project level, in terms of developing standardized templates of legal documents that would accelerate the negotiations between the different partners, also implementing a transparent and as rapid and simple as possible procurement process to also accelerate the development of projects. And together with this transaction advisory package, it also comes with competitive financing. And so here we build on our the IFC, which is the private arm of the World Bank, so on the equity or the debt side, and also on a range of risk mitigation and credit enhancement instruments, such as those that have been presented by some of the other partner financiers here. So this is Scaling Solar, which complements the first initiative, which was focused on enabling on the government side. Scaling Solar is there to unlock financing on the private side. And the third and final initiative I'd like to share with you is again, it's a bit different, but it's complementary, and it's also, so the theme has been mentioned here, it's the Energy Storage Program, which was recently launched by the World Bank SMAP program. And so this energy storage program essentially consists of the World Bank Group having committed $1 billion of financing towards energy storage, also committing to raise 5 times as much funding from other partners, with the objective of developing between now and 2025, I think the figure is 17.5 gigawatt hours of storage, which is over 5 times what currently exists in developed countries. And here what we would do with this energy storage program, again, would have a dual role of enabling the regulatory environment for development of those technologies which are going to be crucial for the scale-up of renewable energy and solar in particular, one. And second, to invest in essentially storage, either as a complement to mini-grids, microgrids, home solar systems, one, or in the case where we're considering much larger scale renewable or solar energy programs, investing directly in storage in the grid so that there's the capacity to absorb this new renewable generation. So thanks very much. That's the 3 initiatives I wanted to highlight. Thanks very much.
Thanks for this clear description of the World Bank activities. Now we are still going on the banking or the financing institution approach. We are going to hear Ms. Astrid Hierous from the French AFD. I leave you present. You know, you are working at Proparco, a subsidiary of AFD. The floor is yours.
Sí, gracias. Te voy a hablar en español para cambiar un poco. Como lo saben, Francia y la India tuvieron la iniciativa de lanzar la Alianza Solar Internacional en el marco de la COP21 en París en 2015. Fue con el objetivo de movilizar $1 trillón hasta 2030 para instalar 1 teravatio de energía solar. Además, como Stephanie lo mencionó, la compañía de la ASI, del Banco Mundial, el Banco Francés de Desarrollo, se lanzó una iniciativa que se llama la Solar Risk Mitigation Initiative en 2018 para complementar y facilitar el desarrollo de proyectos privados de generación solar. Quiero mencionar que se ha traducido, por ejemplo, en la redacción de guidelines para guiar a los gobiernos en la definición de un marco regulatorio que permite facilitar este desarrollo. Este guía ya está publicado y disponible de manera gratuita, por supuesto, desde el mes de septiembre de 2019 en los sitios web. Entonces, sí creo que, por ejemplo, esta guía replica las mejores prácticas internacionales de una manera muy didáctica, insiste en la importancia de una buena planificación, de un análisis riguroso de las necesidades y del potencial de producción de energía solar y de la importancia de asegurar el riesgo de off-take para atraer desarrolladores y financiamiento. Entonces, sí, creo que hay varias, como lo entendimos hasta ahora, hay varios ingredientes para apoyar a desarrollar hasta $1 trillón y 1 teravatio de energía solar. Primero, tiene que ser ambición política, con metas y objetivos en números, en cifras. Y, por ejemplo, en el caso de Francia, el Estado francés anunció la aceleración de su compromiso respecto a la energía solar en los países de la ASI para alcanzar hasta 1,1 billones de euros hasta 2022. Es decir, 500 millones más que lo que se anunció cuando se creó la ASI en 2015. Pero también los gobiernos tienen que integrar en un marco regulatorio incentivos para desarrollar y incentivar al sector privado a invertir en estas tecnologías. Son inversiones muy grandes. Quizás el tercero punto importante son de financiar, por supuesto, estos proyectos de gran escala y de pequeña escala, de pequeño tamaño. Para los proyectos de gran escala, por ejemplo, la Agencia Francesa de Desarrollo y la filial dedicada al sector privado que estoy representando en la región andina, ahora Probarco, juntos han apoyado a la puesta en marcha de 44 proyectos en 25 países en los últimos 4 años, es decir, $1 billón. Ya, dentro de los 1,5 billones de dólares que el Estado francés se comprometió a invertir hasta 2022. Estamos en marcha y seguimos las cifras. Y dentro de eso, Proparco participó en la tercera parte de dicho monto, lo que representa la mitad de estos proyectos, alrededor de 20 proyectos, a través de América Latina, de otros países de la ASI. Y sí, creo que eso es un poco la idea, de tratar de ser ambicioso en tema de cifras y después seguir con asistencia técnica en algunos proyectos que entonces son pequeños, quizás financiarlos a través de, como banco de segundo piso, financiamos a instituciones financieras locales que pueden ofrecer financiamiento a proyectos más pequeños y cuando son proyectos de gran escala, que necesitan financiamiento de más de $10 millones, podemos financiar directamente. Por ejemplo, en la región financiamos el primer proyecto de gran escala escolar en Chile en 2011, financiamos el primer proyecto eólico privado en Uruguay en 2012 y estamos siguiendo con otros proyectos. Y ahora, cuando se llama de proyecto solar o de proyecto eólico, al nivel de la América Latina, financiamos participando en la financiación de alrededor de 3 gigavatios de energía renovable no convencionales en los últimos 10 años. Gracias.
Okay, thank you. Now we still go on with we still carry on with banking institution, and I would like to call Ms. Sarosh Kuntia. Yeah.
Huh? I'll just finish it.
You have some slides?
No problem, we'll just manage from here. So good afternoon, everybody. As my colleague was mentioning, we are part of Government of India institution, and we largely participate in large infrastructure projects. And for the developmental activities, as on date, our exposure under the Government of India lines of credit, it is to the tune of over $24 billion exposure to Oceania, Asia, Africa, Latin America, and with a particular emphasis on these solar projects, that the Government of India initiative, that $2 billion also allocated to Africa for the development of their solar projects. We participate along with our partner countries to see how their Millennium Development Goals or the Sustainable Development Goals are being achieved through assistance from Exim Bank of India. As on date, our exposure to the entire solar sector is to the tune of over $1.5 billion, with the project commitments to the tune of almost $600 to $700 billion. What we have analyzed in the past years, whenever there is implementation of various projects, the entire specter or the gamut of operation which involves in the implementation cycle of a project requires a thorough study, be it preparation of detailed project report, the role of project management consultant, how the project has to be conceived. Besides that, the selection of the real engineering, procurement, and construction companies, how they have to be selected through a competitive bidding process to establish what is the exact price discovery is being achieved for a particular project. Besides that, we have to see how the project implementation cycle is being undertaken. A project is implemented, timely disbursements, the review mechanism has to be placed in a very proactive manner. We in Exim Bank not only assist the projects, but we do monitor projects with the periodic review meetings along with our various ministries, across ministries of Government of India, so that desired objectivity of these projects are being achieved. So we support mainly on the strength of our 3 A's. What we generally believe is acceptability, our adaptability of these projects or the solar projects, and the affordability. It's the objective to achieve the transform, how the local people are getting transformed, how they are being reformed, how are they being brought into the social economic strata to see how their developmental objective is being achieved, and the economies of scale, how they are bringing in these solar projects. For example, I was mentioning in my previous deliberations that in Sudan, we have supported various solar projects where it actually really touched the schools. And there are various schools. The kids started coming there. They started reading their classroom subjects. Besides that, in Sierra Leone, we have done a lot of solar projects with the Government of India assistance. And they are also that empowered the local community in the rural economies, and be it in Niger. And across globe, we support a lot of solar projects. So the basic idea is to have a list of project management consultant in a lender's own platform, beside that EPC players list, so that the exact mix of project can be put to the platform of the partner countries. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Mr. Singh. from Coal India Limited. You are making a presentation? Yeah. Okay.
Laura? Ah, sorry.
Cuarto, no?
Let's see what he said.
Good afternoon. At the onset, I would like to thank ISA. You might have noticed that in the first session of this event, Coal India participated and it was like, oh, Coal India in solar. And this is the last session probably. And this time, the moderator said, yes, Coal India. And why not other coal companies and oil companies? So this is what is a perception change about Coal India. So I would really like to thank ISA for giving us this platform. So basically, I would like to stress upon some data and our commitment and our seriousness towards solar power. The commitment towards investment in solar power generation. This is basically overview of coal sector in India. We have 5th largest coal reserve, a total proved coal reserve of 149 billion tons. We are 2nd largest coal producer of the world. And Coal India is largest coal producer company of the world. The same is the story with consumption and evacuation. This is what the major coal fields of India are located. So you will find that it is mostly on the eastern and central part of India, whereas power plants are scattered all around the country, and the evacuation, the logistical pressure is too much. Then a little word about my company, Coal India Limited. This is a Government of India company. 70% of our share is with government and the rest is with public. We have 8 subsidiaries. We have presence in 8 different states, provinces of India. And we have a number of mines, 364 you can see. And this is our presence geographically in India. Different companies, subsidiary companies. Coal India is a holding company. We have 7 producing subsidiary companies. And this is something about Coal India's strength, the performance. The key highlight is that last year we produced 607 million tons of coal through 364 mines. We have largest mineable reserve. In India, coal meets 54% of total primary energy requirement. Renewable and other energy sources will play a supplementary role for at least foreseeable future, what we believe. But that doesn't mean we are undermining the importance of renewables and solar. We have robust financial position, around 2.5 billion US dollars of profit we registered last year, last fiscal, and 20 billion was our gross sale. The focused expansion plan includes 1,000 million, 1 billion ton of coal by 24-25. At the same time, we have plans to improve our first mile connectivity. Not only that, we are also trying to make the coal more cleaner by washing it. And most importantly, the diversification in solar energy business is our prime area at this moment. Apart from that, we are also looking for cleaner use of coal, like coal to chemical, coal to liquid, coal to gas. And at the same time, we consider coking coal as a strategic mineral, and we are searching assets abroad, because India is a bit scarce in as far as this coking coal is concerned. At the same time, we are looking for looking for the expansion of our resource base by doing more and more exploration. We are looking for technological improvement and modernization of mines. At the same time, we show our concern towards sustainability and environment. This is the electrical energy scenario of India. The total installed capacity is 364 gigawatts. The thermal contributes around 63%. That's what I was trying to say, that thermal coal, as far as coal is concerned, which is contributing around 54% of total installed capacity, is going to play a major role in near future. Renewables, you can see we are having 82.5 gigawatt of installed capacity. Wind being the leader, 45%, solar 38%. Biomass, again, around 9,000 megawatts. So this RE basket of India is 82.5 megawatt, and it is expanding very fast. Now, the green energy commitment of Coal India. This is the energy consumption scenario of Coal India. You will see on the bottommost row that total power consumption is around 4.5 billion units. And expenditure, what we incur is around 0.5 billion US dollar, considering the charge of, means cost of per unit of power is around $0.1. And the contract demand is around 1,000 or 1,100 megawatts. So I'm trying to put it in this way, that we have capacity to absorb what we are going to produce by solar. We have strong financial fundamentals. I discussed this earlier also, with the $2.5 billion of profit last year. That was net profit. And gross sale was US $20 billion. And net worth of the company is 3.8 billion US dollars. This is our land bank. Fortunately or coincidentally, you can say the raw material for solar as well as mining is same, the prime raw material, that is land. So we have acquired around 2,702 square kilometers of land, I think, which is equivalent to the area of Lima or a country like Luxembourg. So it's a huge, huge land bank. And of that, 1,637 square kilometers is under possession of Coal India. So the land associated with abandoned, closed, or discontinued mines, we call it as solar-ready land, is about 308 square kilometers. We are striving to become net zero company. When I say net zero company, that means whatever power we are using, the contract demand of around 1,000 megawatt, that should be compensated by producing equivalent quantity of solar energy, so that what carbon footprint we are leaving, we should at least compensate that. So for that, the target for what target we have set for Coal India is 3,000 megawatt, and for that we require around 60 square kilometers. So we have already much more land than that. So we are planning to use that land to produce solar power. For producing that much of power, we need to invest around 1.6 billion US dollar in next 4 years. That may be a small contribution of Coal India towards 1 trillion solar economy. And what we have done till now is we have joined hands with experts of solar power like NTPC, that is National Thermal Power Corporation of India Limited, Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited, SECI, Navali Lignite Corporation of India Limited. And at the same time, we are corporate partner to ISA. That again shows our strong commitment towards solar energy. So to conclude, Coal India has strong potential of captive consumption of RE. You saw we are consuming lots of electricity, so whatever we produce, we can consume at our own. We have huge land bank. We have robust financial position. Our commitment towards green energy is very strong, and we have already partnered with the experts in the sector of solar. And very recently, you may visit, or you should visit the website of Coal India Limited, that is coalindia.in, and if you go to the tenders, there we have invited expression of interest from different solar players so that they can come to us and they can share their expertise to install a solar power plant in one of the provinces of India, that is Chhattisgarh. So I invite on behalf of Coal India, please come, and on 28th of November, we are going to have a meeting of that. So if you are interested and if you have that potential, then please come, or you can share this information with your colleagues also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. So now we have 10 minutes left. So I propose to split them by half, 5 minutes for questions and 5 minutes for a final word, 1 sentence per panelist, less than 30 seconds each. So maybe just to be, we have seen some first positive steps. We have seen new supporting schemes, new move like Coal India showed us. To be provocative, I would say, is this enough? Don't we need additional support from countries bringing guarantees? There's a huge need, also development banks could be also involved, huge need for training. So is this all enough to change scale? I would like to have your feeling and to get some questions. So there's already one here. If we can circulate the microphone here.
Who's in charge? Circulating.
There's only one microphone. You want this one?
Thank you, sir.
Second question.
No.
¿Para atrás?
Sí. Yo creo que va a la otra sala. Otra pregunta.
Estamos.
Thank you very much, all of you, for this excellent and enlightening presentation that bring to us the possibility of having $1 trillion. Looks like a dream. I will ask my question. My name is Valentin Bartra from Peru, and I will ask my question in Spanish. Okay? My question will be related to technology. So you already know the topic, okay? Technology and the new digitalization of money. Entonces, haré mi pregunta en español para toda la sala y para referirme a esta fabulosa oportunidad que tiene el mundo realmente de dar ese salto hacia el futuro, a esa transición energética, y donde se han reconocido que hay problemas en la parte regulatoria, hay problemas. Hay problemas en la parte, digamos, como manejan todos los bancos, en la parte del riesgo, ¿no? El riesgo de operación, digamos, de construcción, de operación y otros. Pero vemos que la tecnología en los últimos años nos ha traído muy importantes aportes y soluciones, ¿no? Una de ellas es el empleo de la tecnología llamada Distributed Ledger, que también se le conoce como blockchain. ¿Qué hace el blockchain? El blockchain, entre sus aplicaciones, como ustedes saben, permite elaborar contratos. Se ha hablado de la necesidad del PPA, por ejemplo, contratos a largo plazo, y también contratos de los conocidos B2B, ¿no? Business to business o peer to peer, que permite la venta, la transmisión de estos créditos de carbón, reduciendo mucho el riesgo y los costos de transacción, ya que toda la operación es digital. Entonces hay muchos menos participantes, muchos menos riesgos de corrupción, muchos menores costos. Entonces la pregunta con esta introducción es, ustedes, expertos en la banca, en la capacitación, en políticas, ¿cómo ven la posibilidad de utilizar estas novísimas tecnologías para llegar a escala, para acelerar esta transmisión y lograr lo que ustedes y lo que todos nosotros queremos para reducir estos graves riesgos, no solamente climáticos, sino, como bien lo dice el moderador y el presidente de ISA, riesgos de inequidad, porque en el mundo no puede haber paz en la medida que hayan tantos excluidos del acceso a la energía, que está barata y accesible, pero por ciertas razones no llega a estos 2.000 millones de personas que sufren de la falta de acceso. Entonces, podríamos quizás, no sé, no escuché mencionado el tema, pero intentar utilizar esto, o ya lo están haciendo de repente, ¿podrían, por favor, tocar este temita y explorar qué posibilidades tenemos de avanzar un poco más rápido utilizando la tecnología digital? Gracias.
So thank you for this question. Who feels like to answer?
Sí. Quizás yo puedo comentar, si quiere. ¿Sí? Okay. No, creo que tiene toda la razón que tenemos que usar la tecnología digital para facilitar todos estos intercambios, acceso a la financiación, etc. Quería mencionar, por ejemplo, dentro de la iniciativa que lanzamos el Banco Francés con el Banco Mundial en 2018, la Solar Risk Mitigation Initiative, aparte de estos guidelines, hay un componente de crear una nueva plataforma de mercados públicos que se puesta en marcha aproximadamente en Internet, de manera que se facilite y se reagrupen las subastas de dichos proyectos. Y cuando podemos usar este tipo de instrumento para hacer los mercados más transparentes, para intercambiar información financiera, información técnica sobre los proyectos, va a ayudar mucho y va a acelerar el movimiento. Y también tiene razón en el sentido que este acceso a nuevos tipos de energía no deben ser solamente en las ciudades, debe ser también facilitar acceso en las zonas más rurales, más afuera de los centros de ciudad. Por ejemplo, podemos tomar un ejemplo. El Banco Francés, la parte pública, ha estructurado y maneja un subsidio de, por ejemplo, 15 millones de euros para apoyar la electrificación rural en Kenia. Es uno de los primeros proyectos de mini-grid solares que están desarrollando allá para crear alrededor de 15.000 nuevas conexiones afuera de los centros de la ciudad, que significa dar acceso a mucho más personas, que es alrededor de 70.000 personas. Es un proyecto pequeño, pero por el momento, como lo hablamos, no hay modelo bancable para estos tipos de proyectos. Debemos que apoyar como banco de desarrollo al desarrollo de este tipo de proyecto. Y aquí es a través de subsidio.
Y si pudiera complementar, Es muy interesante lo que está diciendo, porque la perspectiva del Banco Mundial es exactamente esa, que queremos ayudar a usar tecnología e innovación para que se salten las brechas de acceso, en particular en geografías como la de África subsahariana o de ciertas partes de Asia del Sur, donde hay ciertos países, como el ejemplo de Burundi, donde el acceso es 8%. No hablamos del 98%, hablamos de 8% de acceso de por medio. Y entonces, de forma complementaria a lo que se estuvo hablando ahora, es casi irónico que el laboratorio de innovación en lo que se refiere a modelos de negocio y a penetración de modelos solares es en África subsahariana. Y como en ese mismo continente se saltó todo lo que era telefonía con cable para tener toda la gente teléfonos móviles, es muy interesante los modelos que estamos experimentando para contribuir a aumentar la tasa de acceso. Y no sé si podemos hablar de blockchain, pero estamos experimentando en el marco de proyectos del Banco Mundial en Malí, en Camerún, en varios países, con modelos de pay as you go, para pagar para acceso a electricidad, con modelos de tipo, bueno, prepago, pay as you go, pago por huella digital, por medio del móvil. Entonces, creo que se está experimentando con varios modelos de negocios, varios modelos de pago que se adapten a las necesidades para colmar esa brecha de acceso en esas geografías. No creo que sea una respuesta muy global y muy sistemática, pero creo que son buenos ejemplos de iniciativas que después se puedan escalar en el futuro. Gracias.
May I ask one question? I am Dr. Manas Mishra, General Manager. Just a small question. Manas Mishra, General Manager, Coal India. So Coal India is willing to have 3,000 megawatt of solar power plant. So can ISA is thinking in terms of renewable energy certification, so that by following that route, Coal India in a shortest possible time can achieve its target of solar power plant by renewable energy certification, sir?
I think Mr. Srikant Sarma is making a presentation about the ISA certification scheme today, so you can attend that. There is possibility of bringing in some sort of scheme like that. And this is the ideal time to do that also. But I would request you to attend that lecture. That's a good one.
Thank you. No, we have to stop. We are running out of time. I'm really sorry. Unless the organizers allows us to give us a few minutes more.
I think you can give up 1 minute each and give the questions.
Yeah. Give it to?
1 minute each, you forget that. Yeah. Give time for questions.
Okay. So, okay, we take one more question.
Muchas gracias. Soy Carlos Kluger. Mire, el Perú es un país maravilloso donde se da una situación que es bastante anecdótica y en el cierto caso fatalista. Existe lo que se llama la maldición de la riqueza. Ahí donde hay mucha riqueza hay una pobreza extrema. Y esto se debe finalmente a que parte del gobierno, en verdad, del mismo Estado. Hoy día Latinoamérica vive lo que se llama una limpieza moral. Estamos deshaciendo de toda esa etapa que hemos vivido durante muchos años. Pues bien, una de las cosas más difíciles que hemos visto es las APP. Las asociaciones públicas privadas han tenido un retraso enorme. ¿Por qué? Porque han habido intenciones también de querer acelerar esto, y en este caso quisiera referirme a lo que dice Magdalena, que lo ha dicho con mucha propiedad, ¿no? Hay mucho dinero, hay muchas oportunidades de hacer, pero no se dan las condiciones, y las condiciones dependen mucho también de nosotros mismos, en verdad, porque el Estado en el sí tiene mucha intención de hacerlo, pero en la práctica también pone muchas trabas. Una institución bien interesante es el CONCITEC. pero el CONCITEC no le interesa trabajar en el desarrollo del país, le trabaja otras cosas. Mi pregunta es la siguiente para usted, Magdalena, es respecto, no sé, sí, es respecto a si se puede financiar o se puede ver la estructura de financiamiento para lo que son investigaciones científicas, para ver casos específicos como por ejemplo el friaje en Puno, donde la gente muere, los animales mueren y toda esa gente entran al círculo de la pobreza ya que regresan a Lima a mendigar. Es un caso bastante patético, ¿verdad? El otro aspecto es...
Please,
sí. Oh, yeah, okay.
To stop, we
All
have
right.
taken your point.
Okay.
I don't know if it's really we have enough time to respond such a complex question, but of course. Not everything can be financed by the private sector, and we don't have just one solution for all problems of Peru. But I know that at this moment what we have technology like we never had. So this technology should be used properly to promote investment. And so we don't have this problem like we had at 10, 15, 20 years ago that the solar energy was so expensive, we had no solution, etc. We have now the price difference is very small. We have a good climate conditions in Peru, of course not probably in Puno, but next to Puno. So we have a lot of opportunity that we never had. And we have money on the private sector. So of course it's a question how we structure good projects. And it's not only private sector, it's not the public, it's everything. I think it's a need to cooperation between all the agents that need to put together by themselves so we can make good investigation that probably will not be financed by the private sector because it's too much risk to finance new technology that is not sure it can be brought to the market. But we have international cooperation for that. We have money. We've heard we have money for investigation. So let's apply this money. Let's use it in intelligent investigation. Then we have a private sector, and once it is found, it can be financed. So it is not one-man show, it is really collaboration. We need to look from the beginning, from how we can do all together to get the best solution to bring the people from the poverty. We have this situation, this opportunity that we never had, and so let's take it.
Thank you. I'm going to close. We will have no time to make.
It was me.
No. Maybe I will take 1 minute to finalize. You know, we are in front of a real revolution. PV will go everywhere and now forever. The beauty of it is that it enables all of us to be actors. Of that, to be partner, whether individually at your own level, your home, your car, your transportation, everything, or in your professional life, whether you are working in government, administration. Most companies will have to face and to cope with this revolution and to integrate it. So it's a big challenge ahead of us. And we count on all of you to join this project. Thank you very much. That's the end of this session. So I really thank you all and all the panelists for your strong participation. Thank you.